My name is Shamiria White, and today I'll be presenting the results of a cybersecurity risk assessment on behalf of the United Kingdom Cybersecurity Team. The members of this team include Hartwell Edja, Jennifer Kim Roman, Reynalda Servin, Clement Kanji, and myself. The purpose of this assessment is to ensure that the communication channels being used by the UK nation are sufficiently secure against threats that have been identified on the network, as well as future threats that may arise. This assessment was conducted on the communication system being used by the UK as part of an international summit along with other nations. These nations include the United States, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, more commonly known as the FVEY partners. There are many threats that can target the nation's networks. These range from hardware and software to telecommunications and human threats. Malicious actors can target hardware within the supply chain and modify firmware or install their own malicious code onto it. They can use external devices like USBs to install malware onto devices connected to the network. Or a fire, flood, or tornado can wreak havoc on the building itself, destroying thousands of dollars of equipment in its wake. The applications that are used on systems on the network can also be targeted. One of the most dangerous types of attacks that target software on a system are zero-day attacks. These attacks exploit vulnerabilities that were previously unknown, and so no patch or fix exists for them when they're first used. These attacks take time to mitigate because if the affected applications belong to a third-party vendor, the organization has to wait for a patch to be released by the vendor before they can fix it. Other threats include distributed denial of service or DDoS attacks that flood the network and prevent legitimate users from accessing it. Users may also have their credentials compromised by malicious actors seeking access to the network. There are many types of malicious actors. They could be script kiddies who rely on the programs they use to launch attacks, malicious insiders who are working inside the organization to access unauthorized areas of the network, or someone seeking to harm the nation or its partners. The nation could be attacked by activists seeking to make a political or social statement through hacktivism. There could be spies within the nation working on behalf of a competitor or a hostile state. Terrorists could try to harm the nation by bringing down its networks or blocking access to them. Or cybercriminals may be looking for financial gain and try to target the nation for an easy payday. Any of these threats could potentially harm the network and cause a breakdown of its confidentiality, integrity, or availability. The networks being used at the summit contain a variety of vulnerabilities. Some of the hardware and software being used are from unverified third parties. There is no assurance that these products have been properly evaluated and certified to be secure to use. Some devices also have USB ports that will automatically run software from any device that connects to them. There are also environmental factors like fires or floods that cannot be prevented using typical security controls. Several applications being used also contain insecure code within them. Some of it lacks security considerations such as improper user input or weak cryptographic algorithms used to encrypt data. The servers that support the communication systems have also not been properly stress tested to ensure that the network can meet the demand of its users or a large amount of requests being directed at it. And lastly, some users are using weak credentials when they connect to their accounts on the network, and data is not being properly encrypted when it's being stored or being transmitted across the network. The risk to the nation's communication systems has been divided into 4 categories: critical, high risk, moderate risk, and low risk. The most critical of the vulnerabilities that need to be addressed are malware devices that can be connected to systems on the network, compromised user credentials, and internal or external malicious actors. USBs or other external media can easily be inserted into a system and infected with malware. Users are commonly referred to as the weakest link within an organization, and that can be very true if they use weak passwords or single-factor authentication. And internal or external malicious actors, from APT actors to insider threats, can have a destructive impact on the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of systems and data on the network. Next, the network bandwidth should be addressed to prevent DDoS attacks or network failure due to an unsupportable network load. The software and hardware obtained from third parties should also be verified. Zero-day attacks fall into the moderate risk category and should be monitored for on the network. Environmental disasters should be considered based on the area the organization's equipment and people reside in. The chance of a fire, flood, tornado, or other environmental disaster happening is low, but would be devastating for the nation if one occurred at the summit site. One of the best ways the nation can help protect its networks and the data on them is to follow best practices for security controls within them. When implementing authentication measures, multi-factor authentication should be used to help verify a user's identity. The device that they connect with should also be verified and authenticated. Users should also have the right permissions to access resources on the network. They should not have accesses above what they need for their work duties. Accounts should be managed and periodically reviewed by administrators to ensure that they don't have more permissions than they should. Proper access control techniques should also be used. There are several types, including discretionary access control, mandatory access control, role-based access control, and attribute-based access control. Of these, attribute-based access control in particular would provide a granular approach to assigning accesses that may help restrict users from connecting unless they do so with the proper clearance level, as well as from an appropriate device, location, or at a certain time of day. Along with following best practices, there are also a number of recommendations that address the threats and vulnerabilities that the network faces. Third-party hardware and software should be obtained from trusted vendors that can verify that their products are secure to use. External ports like USB ports should be disabled, or if that's not feasible, the auto-run or autoplay feature should be disabled so that malware cannot automatically infect the system. Antivirus or other anti-malware solutions should be installed on systems on the network. This includes using something like a network access controller system to make sure that devices that connect are free from malware and are protected as well. Intrusion detection systems or intrusion prevention systems can also be deployed on the network to help detect and prevent malicious attacks. To help protect against DDoS attacks or network congestion, load balancers should be used to help servers distribute the network load. These should also be stress tested to ensure that they can handle such an attack. Third-party DDoS mitigating services, along with black holes or sinkholes, can also be used to direct such traffic away from the network and help prevent it from becoming overloaded. To help protect user credentials, password training and social engineering awareness training should be given to employees to help them spot phishing, or smishing attacks. And finally, encrypt, encrypt, encrypt. Data should be properly encrypted both at rest and in transit using strong cryptographic algorithms such as Advanced Encryption Standard, Transport Layer Security, or IP security. In this presentation, we have reviewed the threat vectors and vulnerabilities facing the nation's communication systems, as well as determined the risks associated with them. We also provided recommendations based on those risks that follow industry best practices. With that, we have reached the end of this presentation. This concludes the assessment, and leadership will be provided with a copy of these materials to review and decide on the best course forward. Thank you for listening to this report, and I hope it has been informative.